Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Gourmet Gagee. Today we're going to make orange drops. They're a delicious orange flavored cookie that has an icing over the top and definitely one of my daughter's favorites. We're going to use flour, sour cream, orange flavor, concentrated orange juice, baking powder, 3/4 pound of butter. I'm going to grate a tablespoonful of orange rind, a little bit of salt, 1 egg, sugar, and that's pretty much it. Now with the microplaner, I'm going to grate a tablespoon of the orange rind. If you don't have a microplaner, you can just use a regular grater. Now the recipe calls for 3½ cups of flour separated. So the best thing to do is to separate the measurements right off the bat. So this is one, and this is one, and this is 1/2. And this is 1/2. And this is 1/4. And this is 1/4. So that's the easiest way. And I'll set these aside and then I'll continue. Now we have to add a teaspoon of baking powder. So I will put 1/2 teaspoon in one batch and 1/2 teaspoon in the other batch. So there's 1/2 and the other 1/2. Close this up. Now I'm adding 2 sticks of unsalted butter to the mixer, and it has to mix until it's nice and fluffy. Now I'm going to add a pinch of salt. You always need a little bit of salt, and that's a pinch. And now I'm going to add 1/2 the flour. And I made the mistake once of adding it all at one time, and trust me, it was a mess. Now I've added 1/2 the flour, and it's time to mix it again. Now I'm going to add the sour cream. So I'm going to drop down the bowl, and it's 1 cup of sour cream. Get this all out of here. Now to this I'm going to add 1½ cups of sugar. So drop the bowl down, and I try to move it around on both sides, that way it makes it a little bit more even. I'm going to shut the mixer off for a minute and scrape down the sides of the bowl. Now I'm going to add 1 egg, the orange rind, and rather than plain orange juice, this is frozen orange juice because it gives it a much deeper flavor. So I'm adding 1/3 cup of that, and I'm going to let it mix. And after this mixes, then I'm going to add the rest of the flour. Now that this is mixed, I'm going to add the remaining flour that I had separated earlier. Now I'm adding a teaspoon of orange extract. There we go. Now I'll turn the mixer on, and when it's finished, we're ready to bake the cookies. One more little tip. If you want tender cookies or tender cakes or anything, once you add the flour, don't beat it too much. It's not like when you make a yeast dough. The less you beat it, the more tender it will be. I've turned the oven on to 375, and I'm scooping them onto a parchment covered pan. And if you don't have parchment paper, just grease the pan with Crisco or any kind of shortening. This is about a tablespoon of a scooper, and again, you can just use a tablespoon. As soon as my oven reaches 375 degrees, I'll put these in the oven and they will bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. This recipe makes about 5 dozen cookies. Now my oven has reached 375 degrees, so I'm going to put the cookies in to bake. The buzzer went off on the stove, and I wanted to be sure they were done, so I took my spatula and I flipped it up slightly, and you can see they are done. Cookies actually continue to bake once you take them out of the oven. So now I'm going to set them on the screen and let them cool. Now the cookies are cooled, and in this bowl I have 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, a teaspoon of orange extract, and 4 tablespoons of orange juice. Now I did use some of the concentrate, but I added water to it. And here it is. And it's perfect. Now the cookies are cool, and so I'm putting the icing on, and I just ice them with a knife. The icing will harden, just as all icing does, but it's delicious and nutritious, and you'll love them. Thanks for baking with Gourmet Gagee, and if I can do it, you can do it. Have a great day.